Hey there, everyone. Welcome back. This week, we are talking about the ultimate DIY project for most homeowners, fixing your own roof. And step one in that is always getting the right darn shingle. We know it's a really complicated process for a lot of people, and it's why you end up calling somebody like ourselves here at Kanga. And to help us today, I brought in Dale Climer. Dale is our residential service superintendent. What he's going to do is walk you through what are the key identifiers or things that you should look for on your shingles to make sure you get the right shingle and the right color and the right actual part of your system, so that way you don't end up with a patchwork quilt up on your roof if you're attempting to do this yourself. People forget that just because you have a CertainTeed weatherwood shingle on your roof, if you go to Lowe's and pick up an Owens Corning weatherwood shingle, install that up there, I promise you, you're going to be in for a rude surprise when it's done, because they're not going to match. So with that said, we're going to stop here. I'm going to turn it over to Dale, and he's going to walk you through what are those key identifiers so you make sure you get the right shingle match every time. So we're out here in the Kanga Roof training simulator. So Dale, I know you're going to walk us through today how to measure these shingles and how to identify them. But why don't you start real quickly here with what are we looking at? What are the shingles we got out here?
So what we're looking at is our 5 major brands that you will see more often than not in our area. We have, starting with an Owens Corning right here. The next one that we have here is a GAF brand shingle. The next one going down the line is a CertainTeed brand shingle. This one is a Tamco, and the one on the very end is an IKO shingle, which is a slightly different, slightly larger shingle than the rest of them. And
that's the one Atlas would fit into a similar sizing profile to that, because those are the metrics.
Very similar. Atlas is actually just slightly larger than IKO is as well.
Okay.
But very similar in size.
So what's the first step then in starting to identify them? I know you kind of referenced the size. Is it starting with the measurements?
First thing we're going to want to start with is the measurements of the shingles. What we're going to look for is we're going to try to find on the roof, if we're up there, a full shingle. We're going to look for one seam that is at one end, and we're going to find the seam that would be at the other end of the shingle. The first thing we're going to take is the width of the shingle. So we will measure it starting at one end, going to the other end. And what I have here is 39.5 for the width of the shingle. The other key indicator that we want to look at is what we would call the reveal of the shingle. Now, the reveal would be from where we have the bottom edge of the shingle to where the bottom edge of the next shingle above it is, which on this Owens Corning, if we were to measure it, that comes in at a 5 3/8 measurement for the reveal of the shingle. With these first 4 brands that we have up here, the measurements vary just slightly, but are overall pretty much the same. If we get down to the end one, we can measure that one. That is our IKO shingle, which this one comes in at a little bit of a larger shingle. If we were to measure it from end to end, again, we are at 40.5 for the width of it. And then the reveal on it, if we were to measure from the bottom to the bottom, is 5 3/4, which on the first one, it was 5 1/4. It's about a 1/2 inch difference in the reveal of the shingle.
So right off the get-go, if you put a tape measure on there and you have certain dimensions, you can already start to really narrow down what the brand of shingle is or manufacturer just by the dimensions of the shingle.
You can, and we do have a sheet that is labeled with those measurements on it as well to even narrow it down even further in that aspect as well.
Cool. So step one, measure the width, measure the exposure or the reveal.
Yes.
You'll hear people call it both. What's the next key identifier that will help us narrow it down?
The next key identifier that I would look at would be what we would call the shadow line of the shingle, which when we refer to the shadow line of the shingle, it is the different colored area that is about 1 inch in width, right at where the next shingle lines up with it. And it just gives it a little bit of definition and makes it pop a little bit more when it is on the roof. But every brand has a slight variance in the way they use the shadow line on their shingles. We'll start, I guess we can go back down to the end here and start with the Owens Corning again. Owens Corning, they have a pretty wide shadow line, but it is also a defined shadow line. And what I mean by when I say defined is it has kind of a straight line that goes from one point to the other point going across the shingle. If we move to the next one down, which is our GAF, you can see with this one, not as much of a defined line here, whereas it kind of blends into the rest of the shingle. The CertainTeed brand, again, somewhat defined, but it is a narrower, more narrow shadow line than the Owens Corning is. The Tampico, very similar to the CertainTeed, but there are other characteristics that can differentiate the Tampico from the CertainTeed.
Well, and as we're on this topic, so if I'm standing on my roof or I'm standing on somebody else's roof and I'm looking at the shadow line, the other one is to kind of look at the laminate or the tabs on the shingles too, because I think there can be some pretty key identifiers.
That is correct. Yep. Some of them are vastly different than other ones. So again, if we want to start with the Owens Corning down here, the one thing that I noticed right off the bat is when we have these laminates, there's always a smaller laminate and then a larger laminate. And they kind of go every other one that keeps the pattern going. With the Owens Corning here, the bigger laminate is very large, which is much larger than any other brand. You can even see they have a large laminate here, but this one is much larger than that one. And this is about the average size on the rest of the brands. So that sticks out to me right away. As soon as I look at it, that is another key indicator.
So on an Owens Corning, you really almost have three different laminates or tabs on there. You have a small, a medium, and then the standard or XL one on there. So if you see three different, that's going to be a big red flag or indicator, hey, you're dealing with an Owens Corning product.
Yes, that is a very big red flag. Just the big laminate, if you were to go up on a roof and see that right away, screams Owens Corning as soon as you see it.
Makes sense.
With the next two that we have here, with the GAF and the CertainTeed, the laminates are pretty similar on these. The one thing that we will notice, though, is the size of them about the same between the smaller and the larger ones. But if you look at the smaller ones on the CertainTeed, the smaller ones have more of a straight edge on them. Whereas with the GAF, the smaller ones have more of a flared out edge on them. It's very minor, but as you look at it a lot over time, it becomes more obvious when you do see it. And then if we move down here to the Tamco, again, very similar in patterns, but again, with the smaller laminate, they have very straight edges on them and not the flared out edges. And it's only on the small laminate, not on the bigger laminate.
And what about that big old hoss at the end there?
So this one is actually very easy to identify. There's one key indicator that is different than any other shingle brand on these shingles. Where we have what we call the exposure, where the next shingle overlaps, right in this corner, every other shingle brand, this is a squared off area where it comes from this part to this part. Now on an IKO, what you will notice right away is this area is rounded. So even without measuring the shingle, which we would know this is an IKO by the size, that rounded inside corner right there tells you automatically that it is an IKO shingle. They are the only ones that do that.
Plus, correct me if I'm wrong, IKO or IKO has a very vertical, they don't have much of a flare to their laminates on their dimensional.
That is absolutely correct. None of their laminates have a flare to them. The big ones and the small ones are all completely straight edge on them.
So if I'm out in the field and I'm on a roof, between the measurement, the exposure, and the shadow line, I should have a pretty darn good idea of what the shingle it is that I'm looking at. Is there any other indicator that I could use to possibly help really seal in what the exact shingle I'm dealing with is?
There is one very large key indicator. Now, you may not always be able to use this, depending. If you had a shingle blow off and you have the nail line of the shingle exposed, you could go to areas like the rake edge where you may be able to access the nail line, or if you have a penetration coming through the roof, like a pipe flashing or a can vent, you may be able to go to the edge of it and see the nail line, because every brand has a different looking nail line to them. Where we have the Tamco here, they have one solid white line. and kind of a faded out area here. So this, where this ends at, is actually the top of the shingle that's underneath that. We call that the headlap area. And every shingle kind of indicates that with the way they do their nail lines. So here on the CertainTeed, they have a doubled up nail line with a single headlap line, but they do it in blue on CertainTeed shingles. They're the only ones that have a blue nail line on their shingles. GAF here, they again have one nail line, a kind of blacked out area, and then the headlap line, but it is white. So you know by the single nail line that it is different than the CertainTeed that has the double nail line. And then Owens Corning, they have their infamous Sure Nail strip on their OC duration line, which is a fabric strip that holds the nail much better. And it is a key indicator that you know that it is an OC line of shingles.
So listening to you, there's two things that stand out to me. You see a fabric strip, you know it's Owens Corning.
Yes.
You see blue lines, you immediately know it's CertainTeed. From there, you might have to do a little bit more investigation to break down whether it's GAF, whether it's ICO, Atlas, or any of the other manufacturers.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, cool. Is there any other key indicators that if I'm up on a roof that I should be looking for? We got the measurements, we got the exposures, we have the shadow lines, and we have the nail line. Anything else that I should be looking at to make sure I get the right shingle match for the roof I'm on?
There actually is one more. Let's see if we have it on this. So if, say, we have a windstorm and shingles actually blow off of your roof. On the back of shingles, when they deliver them, I will pull one of these off. They have a plastic strip here that keeps the shingles from sticking to themselves when they deliver them. So in this case, we have a plastic strip. It clearly says CertainTeed right on it. So we know this is a CertainTeed shingle. Now, not every brand has, they all have the plastic strip, but they're not all clearly labeled on them. I believe we can check. I believe Tamco is clear. As you can see here, same strip, but no labeling on it. It's just a clear strip that is there. So it can be a key indicator, but not one that I would always
It's not something we want to rely on.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah,
if it's
sense.
there, use it, obviously. But if it's not there, I wouldn't rely on it to try to decipher what type of shingle it is.
Very cool. All right, everyone. So there you have it. Number one, thank you, Dale. Appreciate that.
Of course.
Walking you through, what are those key ways to actually identify the shingle properly? Now, we overlooked one big piece of this. We walked you through, looking at the exposure, the width, the nail strip, all those different components. That'll get you down to a actual manufacturer. But now, how do you get the right color? So in order to get the right color, there's a couple things that you can do. One, you can certainly get up on your roof and, crawl around and try and match it up yourself. I wouldn't recommend that. The other way, and Dale, I know you've referenced this internally, you've mentioned like taking a photo.
Yes, we want to get up close and get a picture of the granule patterns. And then we can compare that to other shingle samples to try to pick the best color that is available to match that.
What about using my really good photo with the photo I see like on the website or on a printed brochure? Is that a good idea?
I do advise against that. A printed picture does not give you the same color patterns as what the actual granule patterns are that are in the shingles.
Gotcha.
That real life sample is going to give you the best opportunity to get the correct match for the shingle.
Okay. Well, and another thing they can do, because a lot of times, and we occasionally do this, you may have a bundle of shingles left over in your garage.
Yes.
So is there anywhere they could go and, like, if they have one of those shingles, take it to get a match because maybe they need 2 more bundles or they only have 1 or 2 left over? Is there any places I can go to actually match up the shingles? There
is a couple. You have like your Home Depots and Lowe's and Menards. They only carry very specific brands, though. They may have 1 or 2 brands of shingles there. Mm-hmm. They don't have everything. The next place that you could check is your local SRS or a Gulf Eagle, which are bigger roofing suppliers. They'll have a much larger selection of shingles there. And there's always somebody willing to help at the counter to help you match it, pick out the correct shingle for you.
Beautiful. So even if I'm the DIY weekend warrior, and God bless those of you out there, follow the steps, get it narrowed down, right? You can get down to the manufacturer. If you have a spare shingle, right, or you can remove one from the roof, best thing you can do, take it into one of those supply houses. They'll be able to match it up really, really, almost exactly, if not exactly. The fail-safe otherwise, you don't want to crack your roof open, which we understand. Get that really, really good photo. And when you say that, you mean like up close, right, like a 2x2 square inch area of that shingle.
As close as you possibly can to it, yes.
So that way you're really getting the shingle granule pattern.
Yes.
Say that 3 times fast. And then compare that to actual physical samples.
Yes.
Which, again, you could take that great photo and bring it into those same supply houses. They'll be able to have samples on hand and really do a good matchup. Now, that's a lot of work.
It is.
And you have to get on a roof.
You do.
And sometimes a really steep roof.
Scary roofs.
Yes. So our recommendation at the end of the day, number one, we hope you learn something and you feel more empowered. But sincerely, I mean, we care is one of our core values for a reason. We really don't want you to have to get on your roof. We have experts who do this all day, every day. They're actually on your team.
They are.
They're the ones out there. And we will come out. There's no repair too small. We don't care if it's one shingle or half the roof. We will come out. We will do the full diagnostic. We'll figure out what the right shingle is so we get the right match and ultimately save you from, number one, all this headache and guessing work and maybe getting the wrong shingle color and then having to repeat the process. And ultimately, we get it done right the first time, back it all with our money-back guarantee so you have total peace of mind. I want to thank you again, Dale. Really do appreciate your help today. I think the audience really learned something. And for you out there, don't forget, you can always call us at 586-566-0308. You can schedule your appointments online right through the website. If you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe. We're going to continue to create great content like this. And as always, I hope you have a kangarific day.